Hello, welcome to another Black Horizons program. I'm your host, Hamid Rasheed. We're glad that you could take time out from your busy schedules to join us on our program. This week, approximately 9 students from 4 universities and colleges in North Carolina visited Halifax as part of a 3-week tour organized by the Raleigh-Durham Consortium of Colleges and Universities. I have joining me on today's program to talk about the tour and the purposes behind it, Dr. Julius Nimmons, who is the chairman of the Division of Social Sciences, St. Augustine's College, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Elaine Ratliff, Elaine, who is a student at Shaw. She is studying psychology. She's a senior, and she'll be entering her 4th year of studies next year. I want to welcome you both to the Black Horizons program, and also welcome you to our province of Nova Scotia. Dr. Nimmons, I'd like to start with you first and ask you how the tour came about and what is its main purpose and focus.
First, let me say we're delighted to be here. We really are enjoying ourselves so far. This program is a part of a continuation of a series of programs that was started about 4 years ago by the Raleigh-Durham Consortium. It is a program that is attempting to trace the African dispersion in certain parts of North America, or South America also for that matter. And over the past few years, we have attempted to go to the Caribbean and to South America. And this year, we thought about Canada as a place to have as a part of our adventure and places of study and research. And so we discussed this, and I began to put together a proposal, which we discussed with the Duke University Canadian Studies Center. And as a result, we submitted it, and it was funded, and this again became a part of our overall international program studies thrust. And so that is what led us to Canada, looking at the economic patterns in the African dispersion to Canada, which is a continuation of this overall program, and we had estimated it would take about 5 to 6 years to complete the total sphere in this hemisphere anyway.
Right. Well, now, how long has it taken you to put together this part of the tour that affects Canada?
This particular part, it took us about a year to get the proposal written, to get the components put in place. We had a team to come up in March of this year and did the actual groundwork in making the contacts at the various universities that we're visiting, the various professors who are lecturing to us, and other people who are participating. They also set up the tours that we're taking as we move from one place to another. So that the year initially, the month of March, when they came up for about a week, and then there was another period of about 3 months in which we began to get ourselves ready, and we took off in July.
So a fair amount of planning and preparation
absolutely.
Going into the tour. I understand it's going to be about 3 weeks duration.
Yeah, actually 23 days.
23 days.
Yes.
How is your tour financed? Is it something that the students themselves have to bear the cost of, or is it a combination of student and other funding, or just how is it?
Well, while I'm certain the students could perhaps pay their own way,
Yes.
This program is funded by the United States International Communications Agency.
I see.
And they have, over the years, deemed our projects worthy, the Raleigh-Durham Consortium, worthy of funding, and that is how we are able to do these kinds of trips. And I must point out also that this is the second part of a 2-part funded program. The first part, or one part, deals with a international student seminar on campus of one of the institutions in the Raleigh-Durham Consortium, in which we bring students who are in this country, in the United States, studying at various universities. We bring them to the Raleigh-Durham Consortium, where they spend about a week of seminar work, getting to know other students, American students who are in the Raleigh-Durham Consortium. That part is a part of the funded program too. And so the study and travel abroad program is the second component of the total package.
Right. Well, now, could you give me an idea of what schools are involved in the consortium, and how did the consortium come about? Is it an ongoing kind of thing, or is it just for the purposes of this particular program?
No, this consortium has been going on now since about 1974, 75. And it was conceived out of with the idea that with a major university like Duke University, which has facilities that encompass all areas and a vast expertise in just about any field. Duke is a very well-known and established institution. And with smaller institutions like St. Augustine's College, which is a predominantly black institution, small, about 1,600 students, Shaw University, which is another predominantly black institution,
Yes.
and Meredith College, which is a relatively smaller institution too, and North Carolina Central University, which is a state institution but a bit larger. It was the feeling that with this kind of resource that we had a lot that could be shared among and between our institutions.
Yes.
And so those were the seeds for the consortium idea. And it's interchangeable. Students can move around in terms of coursework and exchange work, and credit can be accepted from one institution to the other. In fact, on this program, students will be eligible to receive approximately 3 hours for this particular program, assuming their projects are acceptable for publication.
Right. Well, now, how were the students chosen that are participating in the tour? It's an interracial group, too, I observed. How were the students chosen to participate in the tour, and what will be expected? You made some mention of projects.
Yes.
Could you tell us something about that?
Each institution does its own selection
Yes.
process. However, as coordinator of this component of the program, we send out the eligibility requirements, and then each institution applies those criteria to its selection process.
Yes.
For instance, the students must have completed a minimum of 60 semester hours. A student must have a minimum of a certain grade point average. These are the suggested criteria that we send out in general. That they must be recommended by department chairperson or a faculty member. And that they must be in good standing with their institutions. These are the basic criteria. Now, the expectations are, one, that the student will get some value and get some benefit out of just the experience itself. Secondly, that the student will develop a research project, a topic, and do the research on that particular topic, and produce a paper that is assessed, it is evaluated, and hopefully it will be acceptable for publication, because we do publish the papers that are generated from the kind of essential research that's carried on based on the overall theme that we're operating under on this particular project.
So now the students select the topic for their research in advance of coming. That's part of their preparation, is it?
Well, they don't have to.
They don't have to.
That's one of the reasons we spend time at various locations to just let them get a feel for
Right.
what we're moving into.
Right.
And so even now here, the students are at Dalhousie University, at
Yes.
St. Mary's University, using libraries, at the archives, trying to see what is there, what is available, and develop their topics and move forward with the research on it. So they could have developed a topic or had a topic in mind before we left, or certainly by now they should pretty well know
Right.
what area they're moving into.
Right. Well, now, as we've said already, the tour is of 3 weeks duration.
Yes.
What areas of Canada will the tour cover?
We started coming in through Montreal and coming up to Quebec and to Fredericton, over here to Halifax. We will stay here 6 days and depart from Halifax and move to the Mount Allison University over
yes.
at Sackville. We're going back, that is, to Sackville. And then from there, that'll be around the 28th of July. We'll move into Maine at Machias, Maine, University of Maine there. And then from there to Arno, the University of Maine at Arno. And each one of these places now have a Canadian Studies Center.
I see.
And we stop at each center there and we spend a day for a lecture. And again, the students are gathering more information now, finalizing their research effort so that they can get to the writing stages during the next 3 to 4 weeks when the projects would be due.
Right. Well, now, it appears that your tour has an Eastern Canadian orientation. You've started in Montreal and you've worked your way east. Is there a particular reason for that, why the emphasis has been on the eastern region as opposed to, say, visiting the large communities in Toronto and the prairies and west and so on?
Yes, there was a purpose, a designed reason for that, and it was pretty much because we had, through research, recognized the fact that the large part of the black dispersion was in the maritime vicinity, and that's the area that we wanted to concentrate on, the maritime provinces. And so the Montreal, Quebec aspect of it was simply a part of the touring aspect and yet informational gathering part too. Because at each one of those points, we were given lectures or were able to see people and discuss things with people, leading us into the maritime provinces where we are really concentrating our efforts.
Well, I'd like to pass over to you, Elaine, and ask you about your impressions of Canada, and in particular the black community in Canada, prior to coming on this tour. Did you know very much about the community here?
Well, no, I had done some preliminary research, but only to get here and find out that there has been research since then. And, well, I studied basically the history of the blacks in Canada and learned about the slavery and loyalists and things like that. And now, well, we've been, visiting several libraries and trying to find a research, what we like to research on, but, well, like in the last 2 days, we have really come down to what we like to do. I changed my mind several times, because I found that different things interested me.
Yes.
But basically, I hadn't really known anything before I came to Canada, except that there were blacks in Canada, but I never thought about their economic, educational status or things like that.
Right. Well, when you were preparing for your trip, did you find it that you were able to, you mentioned that you had some sources. How difficult was it for you, a student at Shaw University in North Carolina, to find material on the black community in Canada?
It was very hard. I visited several libraries and I couldn't find anything. In fact, we had got in touch with other libraries in different cities throughout North Carolina to look for information, and if they were to find it, to send it to us. However, I didn't find any information after searching for about a good 6 weeks. I finally found some like the last week, and I found a book written by Robin Winks.
Yes.
And entitled The Blacks in Canada, and it was very thick and I couldn't get through it in time enough, so I skimmed over it. But I found, reasonable enough information to give me a foundation for understanding what was going on. I didn't realize that that the black Canadians had so much in common as far as racial discrimination as we do in the United States, as I do now.
Had you, what is the image that is projected of the situation of blacks in the United States? When you think of blacks, I don't know, but is there, you say you were surprised. Is Canada normally thought of south of the border as being the land of opportunity for blacks and so on?
Definitely. Matter of fact, when I found out that they had slavery, even though it wasn't only Negroes, they also had Indian slaves, I never thought, nobody ever mentioned to me in studying Canada and history, no one ever mentioned the fact that such things existed in Canada, and I always thought it was the land of the free, I never knew that they had the same things that we had.
That's a very interesting point. You mentioned about your projects that you've changed your mind several times. What kinds of things have you thought about in terms of doing your project?
Well, myself and a colleague of mine, Shirley Middleton, we came from the same institution. We had thought about maybe I would study the female in Canada and she would study the black male, and we would come together at some point. We would study all the different institutions, the government, the family, economic situations, and we would come together at some point to compare them in a family situation. But after finding that we couldn't find that much information and we had very little time left, we kind of branched off. And I thought that maybe, I haven't really decided yet, but I thought about doing the black response to Canadian racism.
Yes, it would be a very interesting topic. We started to chat a bit about your impressions, and I went off a little bit. I'd like to come back to the impressions. Were there other impressions that you've gleaned? I know you haven't been here very long, and I don't want to be too unfair with you. The scripture says you shouldn't lay hands on a man suddenly, but it doesn't say anything about the opposite sex. So I hope you forgive me if I kind of put you on the spot on occasion.
Okay.
Have you formed other impressions in the short time that you've been here?
Well, no, it's the same. I don't see Canada as being any different than the United States, other than, well, since I've been here, just learning a little bit about the different provinces. I didn't know anything. I didn't know, well, being in the United States, we have 52 states, 50 states. 50 states, not 52 states, sorry about that. And coming here, and there's only 10 provinces, I had to I didn't know, basically I didn't know anything when I got here about Canada. I didn't know the difference. I thought it was like states, even through my research, I really didn't understand it. But coming here, we've been to Montreal and Quebec City and Fredericton, and basically I found it no different, and no places. I liked Montreal, but no place has really made an impression on me that was different from anything else.
Have you had much opportunity to have much contact to this point with members of the black community here?
Well, in Montreal, we met at the Negro Community Center with several, but other than that, we've been giving lectures, and tonight will be the second time that we will be exposed to the black community. But we haven't had much exposure to the black community.
Okay. What, Dr. Nimmons mentioned that you're going to be spending approximately 6 days in Halifax. What are your expectations of those 6 days in Halifax? What do you hope to see and cover?
Well, that I visit several, besides visiting the black community, get to visit several families and find out, a little bit maybe about their history, and just to come up with something that would give me an understanding or idea of the black family here in Canada. But, well, basically just to get to the black family. That's what I'm hoping to do. Spend the rest of the time here, besides doing research in the library, to studying the black families and intermingling with them.
Right. Are you staying at one central location, or are you staying with host families while you're here?
Well, right now we're staying at St. Mary's University.
Yes.
But as I understand, this weekend we will be staying with several black families in the community. But we don't know who that is yet.
Well, now, we were chatting before we went on air, and you mentioned that you're from New Jersey.
Yes.
How did you get all the way from New Jersey to Shaw University in North Carolina?
Well, I wanted to go to a black institution, and in the beginning I wanted to go to Howard University. And
Howard
University in
yes.
Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I didn't apply in time enough, got senioritis. I wasn't really doing anything in my senior year of high school,
Yes,
just
right.
taking it easy. But I wanted to go to a black institution, and my guidance counselor ran, what I was looking for through a computer, and several black institutions came out. And Shaw was one of them, and I know people that have gone to Shaw, that have mentioned Shaw to me, so I applied, and I was accepted, and I've been there ever since.
Could you share with us some of your some of what went behind your desire to enroll in an all-black college or a predominantly black school like Shaw, as opposed to going to any one of the other hundreds of choices that you would have had in the United States?
Well, I chose to go to a black institution because, well, I went to a high school where it wasn't really predominantly white, but that's the effect I got out of it. But I felt that I wanted to go to an institution and get back to my heritage, in other words, study about different. If I went to a black institution, I could meet blacks from all over the United States just about, and I could get into our differences and our likenesses. But there wasn't sure. Well, I guess I could have got it, at any other black institution, but it was just that I just really wanted to get with other black people and get into black, back into the black heritage. That's basically it.
I see. Well, now you mentioned that you'll be going into your 4th year, I guess, in the I'm not sure in the fall, I guess, when you go back to your program. You're studying psychology. What prompted you to get involved in this field?
Well, actually, in the beginning when I got to Shaw, I was majoring in pre-med.
I see.
I didn't find out that they didn't have a pre-med program until after the second semester of my sophomore year. And through I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do, but I know that I knew then that I liked to talk a lot, and that I like to help people with their problems, and I like studying about the mind and things of that nature. So I figured that why not psychology? I was already there. That's something I had already been exposed to. You see, so all I had to do was get a little bit more into it, and everything worked out.
Right. Well, I'd like to come back to you, Dr. Nimmons, in terms of looking a bit at the program. You mentioned that this part of the program is just one component part of the overall program. I forget now, the first part of the program commenced at what period, did you say?
The International Student Seminar?
Yes.
That was held in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And as I indicated, that's a program where we invite Fulbright Hayes students who are studying at various universities and colleges in the United States to come to our consortium for about a week
Mm-hmm.
of seminars, soirees, discussion sessions, social activities. And that's the component that I was referring to.
Right. Now, I may have not made myself clear. And you mentioned that the overall program you anticipated would be a 5-year program
Oh, I
involving
see.
visits to
Sure.
other parts of the Northern Hemisphere. And
Sure.
I wondered if this was the first part or if you had made other visits to other
yes.
areas.
Yes. No, we have made visits to Guyana and South America.
Yes.
Last year we were down in Barbados
Yes.
for 3 weeks, and now we're here in Canada for 3 weeks. We anticipate returning to the Caribbean for a series of other trips there. And that is what I meant by the 5-year projection.
I see.
Now, if our funding source holds out, we'll be able to complete it.
Mhm.
If not, we may have to delay some of the other components until later. But we're in the third part of it. This is the third stage in the 5-year component package.
Right. Well, I wonder if I could, in the few remaining minutes that we have in the program, sort of move away from your tour per se and talk a bit about the situation in the United States. I had on my program a week or so ago Arthur Green, who is the director of the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights, I believe it's called, and we were discussing the situation with the black community in the United States. He was giving me sort of an instinct, his perceptions of what he saw going on now with the restraint in government spending and so on. How do you see the situation, generally speaking, of the black community, the socioeconomic situation of the black community in the United States at the present time?
Well, it appears that certainly with the restraints in spending that the government is involved in, and certainly certain agencies that have been over the past decade or so very much into supporting social agencies or social programs. With the withdrawal or the cutbacks in those spheres at a time when we are compounded with economic problems in terms of our economy, this puts a double hardship on the black community, especially that component and that segment of the black community that has already been burdened with further difficulties, i.e. the problems of employment, jobs, the problems of education, lack of skills, or the training to get better skills. You see, when you reduce or cut the funding in the areas that provided those kinds of outlets for the community, then you have created an even worse situation that reaps havoc upon the black community. Therefore, our assessment at this point in viewing it is that those persons who can least afford the kinds of restraints in spending that are taking place are going to be hurt most, and that invariably will be the black community. The elderly, the poor, the young, the teenagers who are out and are unemployed, these people will continue to suffer even greater than now.
Well, now, when we think of your area, the South, in recent years, I had an opportunity to visit the South a couple of years ago, and I was quite surprised by the industrialization that was taking place there. A lot of companies and so on had been moving from the north to the south to take advantage of cheaper labor and that kind of thing. Has that trend been affected at all by the current economic situation?
It depends on the kind of industry. Now, in North Carolina, which I think is a rather interesting and unique example, North Carolina continues to attract a large number of industrial complexes into that state. Even with the present economic hardship that we're going through, we still are the state is still able to attract industry there, both internal industries, that is United States industries, as well as international industries that are moving into the state. It's a lot of land, cheap labor, or lack of restraints on labor and that sort of thing. So that this makes North Carolina a little more different, a bit more different from some other areas who are not experiencing as rapid a change or a turnover in industrial businesses moving into there. Much of what is happening in North Carolina is a result of a research triangle that is in existence there, which is specifically geared toward attracting research or making available research facilities for certain industries. So you'll have large companies who have their headquarters for research located in North Carolina. Certain of the computer industries are locating there. These are high technology industries,
Yes.
which require a high technical kind of training and skill. And therefore, while those industries are moving in, there's only a small segment of the population that is benefiting from that move, because they just don't have the skills or training to take the jobs there. Now, granted, there are some programs in each of these industries that prepare or take on some people. But
Right.
this makes, I think, for diversity in the North Carolina economy, and you see it happening in some of the other southern states also.
Right. Well, we have about 3 minutes left on today's program. I want to ask you how the black colleges are faring. Are they what? And this is a big question that I answer in a couple of minutes. So how are they faring, and what is your prognosis for the future of the black college as an institution in Black America?
It's interesting. The history of black institutions in the United States has been a history of struggle, and they have never really had all of the financial resources to do some of the kinds of programming that they would like to do. Nevertheless, given the nature of the resources that they have existed for quite a long time. Many of them founded in the 1860s, 1867, thereabouts, and since then have sustained themselves. With respect to the future, I think that our problem is going to be the assistance that our students will be able to get. The institutions are successfully acquiring funds to carry on. It's the students that are experiencing the difficulties with the cutback in certain funding or financial assistance programs to students. And that is what we're watching now. We are now, and many of our institutions, especially ours at St. Augustine's, have developed special programs to raise funds for scholarship aid to assist those students who are in need of assistance, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to sustain them as well as sustain ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, what is is there a principal source of funding for most of the institutions, or I suppose it varies from institution to institution?
Yeah, it varies. Alumni support, some federal support. The larger of the institutions that have research projects, programs, and various schools are able to get various kinds of fundings from the various agencies of the government, private foundations, philanthropic groups, sources of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, we've exhausted our time. I wished we had some time to go into a full-scale discussion of the role of the black colleges and universities as a very important institution in the black community of the United States, but unfortunately, we don't have that time. Just before we sign off for today, I want to wish you, Dr. Nimmons, and you, Elaine, all the best on your trip. I hope that you'll find it educational, informative, and I look forward to reading, hopefully, some of the papers that are produced by the students that are participating in your group. So best of luck with your tour. Thank you for taking time out to be our guest on Black Horizons. We want to thank you for watching. Invite you back next week. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to another Black Horizons program. We're glad that you could take time from your busy schedules to be with us once again. Today we'll be talking about the transition year program at Dalhousie University. The transition year program is designed to help blacks and Indians of Nova Scotia to become eligible for entrance into degree programs at Dalhousie University. In today's program, we'll be talking with the director of the transition year program, Karolyn Waterson, about the history of the program, the program's success to date, and the future of the program in the current atmosphere of spending restraint. Karolyn, welcome to the Black Horizons program.
Thank you, Hamid.
I wonder, for the benefit of those people who may be watching our program today who are not familiar with the transition year program, if I could ask you just to tell us a little bit about it. When and why was it started?
It was started in 1970, and it was designed to help the two groups that were most severely disadvantaged in Nova Scotia's history, the Mi'kmaq Indians and the black community. It's designed for students who, largely for social and economic reasons, have no realistic hope of taking the usual route to university, who need full support, not only in terms of tuition, but for dormitory fees, book purchases, and all the incidental expenses of living on campus, and who also need additional training. It's for students who may have had to drop out for economic reasons, or may have felt that there was no purpose in taking an academic program in high school, were persuaded to take a general program because they thought they would never have the funds to come to university. It gives them a catch-up year and hopefully helps them to develop all the skills they will need to do their first regular year on campus in their second year at Dalhousie.
How long has the program been operating now?
Since 1970.
I see. So it's about 12.
Yes, 12 years.
Going into its 12th year
years,
this
yes.
year, I would think. What is the relationship of the TYP program to the rest of the university?
It's been related to the university in various ways over the years. It started off in the Faculty of Arts and Science. Then it became part of Student Services under the Dean of Student Services. It has now, in an attempt to develop the program and upgrade it, come back into the Faculty of Arts and Science with approximately the status of a department within the Faculty of Arts and Science. And in that connection, I was named the new director in July.
I see. Now, you're the first full-time director, as I understand it.
I'm the first director who gives to the program out more than 50% of his or her time. I'm not yet a full-time director. That may well be a development in the future. I'm only 2/3 in the transition year program and 1/3 in the French department.
I see. Can you tell us something about how the program is structured? Do you have advisory committee, for example? Just how is the program structured?
We're looking into revising all aspects of the program. I imagine we will eventually have two advisory committees, one for the nitty-gritty academic problems of which building to have and what sort of contract to offer Professor X, and another community committee to help us define the overall goals of the program and make sure the program is serving the needs of the communities.
At the moment, what structure is in place? You just have the Faculty Advisory Committee?
At the moment, everyone is on vacation, and we haven't been able to set up our committees. That will be one of our priorities in the fall. Our immediate priorities are to select students and to get staff and sufficient funding for next year.
Now, do you hope in this next university term, starting in September of this year, to start work on the establishment of the second advisory committee that you're mentioning?
Definitely, definitely.
I see. Have you given any thought to how that will be done? Will there be appointments made by the president, or how will you approach it, or haven't got that far yet?
I think we haven't gotten that far, but I don't think the president would probably be involved directly with setting up the committee. I want to talk to the entire staff about that before making a definite commitment in that area.
Okay. Can you tell us something about how the program is financed?
Well, that too has changed as the years have gone by. Initially, it was financed by Dalhousie University by a substantial grant from the provincial government and by a certain number of small but nonetheless significant private donations. Most of the time between approximately 1972 and the present, Dalhousie University has financed the program, and that's becoming more and more difficult. We're hoping once again to have a substantial provincial support, and it's certainly desperately needed now. And I've just set up, with the support of Vice President Robbie Shaw at Dalhousie, an independent bursary fund. It's called the Transition Year Bursary Fund. And we can accept donations from any segment of the community to that fund, and any donation over $10 would be fully tax deductible. And I hope that will help us to maintain the health of the program and hopefully even expand it in the future.
Can you give us some idea as to the size of the budget in absolute dollars? Is it a very costly program? Are you talking about major funding?
We're talking about a small budget, relatively small operating budget,
Yes.
and a fairly large bursary budget,
Yes.
because the program provides students with 2 full years of support. When I say it's a fairly large budget, it's not large from the student's viewpoint. The student can manage on what we can offer the student, but no one gets rich being a student.
Yes.
But because we do provide an unusually high level of support for people who have no economic resources to draw on, including tuition, dormitory fees, book expenses, and incidentals, and we provide this for 2 years so that hopefully, if they've done well enough, they can apply in the normal manner for scholarships in their 3rd and 4th years at university. It is a fairly large bursary fund. We carry on support for students for 2 years.
Okay. I'd like to move now to some discussion of the contents of the program itself. But before I do that, I'd like to ask you, how does one become a student? What is the what and how is the selection done, and what are the criteria for enrolling in the program?
We ask students who would like to come into the program to fill out an application form. Every student who applies is interviewed personally, and the personal interview is very important because we recognize that these students are not generally the type of people who are used to coping with formal written applications, and who may not have the economic background to put their best foot forward in this type of situation. We are making the selection very late this year because I was appointed July 1st. Next year I hope to do it much sooner. In fact, I would urge anyone who's interested in entering the program next year to make sure that they get their application in as soon as possible. In fact, I don't think it would be possible for us to consider new applications which have not reached us by March 15th of 1983. We hope to interview the students in March and April of 1983, when the entire staff of the TYP is on campus, when the campus is operating normally,
Yes.
so that students can get a feel for what's happening too and have some idea of whether it's really suitable to their needs. And if the entire staff can interview the student, we feel it's a much fairer way of evaluating their chances of success.
Now, what kinds of things do you take into consideration when you're evaluating a potential participant in the TYP program? Are there special minimum academic requirements, for example?
There are very few absolute requirements. What we try to determine by looking at the students' past achievement, present motivation, aptitude, degree of determination is their chances of filling in whatever gaps they as an individual have in 1 year, so that they are in a position to go into their first year on campus feeling confident of success, not just hoping to scrape through, but feeling that they can truly achieve their objectives and go into whatever type of program they want to. It's difficult to say. The standard aptitude tests have a very strong cultural bias, and they're
Yes.
generally not suitable
Yes.
to the type of applicants. That's one reason we place very strong emphasis on the personal interviews, why we try to have several people talk to each candidate.
So it's an assessment on the individual merits, pretty much, of the
Yes,
individual.
yes, and our judgment of whether the person has an opportunity a chance of success to fill in the gaps
Probably,
in 1 year, which is a very short period of time.
probably a good approach, a personalized, very personalized kind of approach to the whole
We
thing.
hope the entire program will be a very personalized thing. One of the changes I've made in the program is to pair each incoming student with a faculty advisor on campus who is not presently participating in the program, so that the student has an individual one-to-one contact with another faculty member, possibly someone in the field the student hopes to enter.
Right. Well, now, what kind of curriculum or academic program is there for the TYP student?
First of all, I'd like to say that that is as individualized, again, as possible. Basically, for the average student, catch-up work would be needed in two main areas. English language skills, because whatever course the student takes subsequently, if grammar is not correct, there are spelling problems, paragraphs are badly organized, the student will lose credit. We don't want that to happen. We want the student to be prepared to function properly in any other course. There's something similar in mathematics. We have an upgrading course in mathematical skills, which includes an introduction to computer science, which is becoming more and more important.
Yes.
So this is the core of the catch-up year. In addition, we have a Black Studies program and a Mi'kmaq Studies program. And in that connection, I hope to have a series of evening lectures expanding this program and offering the resources of the transition year program not only to the academic community, but to the entire Halifax-Dartmouth community and anyone who can make the trip in.
That would be good.
In addition, I'm sorry, I forgot
Yes.
one element of the program. The student chooses what we call a fifth part of the program, which is a personal choice, and either takes for credit or sits in as an observer, an auditor, in a regular university course. This allows the student who is doing the transition year program to find out what's ahead in the second year, to perhaps, if the student only audits the course rather than takes it for credit, to explore a new area, find out whether that area is really of interest to the student, and if the student feels that he or she has a capacity to handle it, a talent for it. And then there might be, depending on the person, individual tutoring.
Yes. So then, as I understand, then you would have the core program would be your math and English. You would then audit one of the regular credit
That's right.
programs, and then you would have two other electives that you would
Well, there would be Black Studies and
Black-
Mi'kmaq Studies.
Black Studies. Now, the Black Studies and Mi'kmaq Studies taken by both the blacks and the
Yes,
Indians?
that would be part of the core of the program,
I see.
and that would be linked to an evening lecture series,
I see.
which I hope the students will help us organize. I hope they'll help us setting up programs and posters and welcoming people to that.
You commented briefly on this earlier, but the duration of the program, how long is the program, and you know, how do they pass from the TYP into the regular degree program?
The academic year involves 8 short months. Therefore, it's a very intensive retraining program.
Yes.
At the end of the transition year, if they have completed it successfully, we recommend that they be admitted to university, and they are automatically admitted to university. And during that second year, they continue to receive funding from us, moral support. I hope they will always feel free to come back to the transition year program, consider it their home base. We will follow their progress and help them in any way we can. And I hope they will help us to welcome the following year's new students. Then, if all goes well and the student does well in their first year, regular year on campus, they can apply for scholarships in the usual manner for their third and fourth years.
So they have one year, which is actually, as the name suggests, a transition year.
Yes.
Then they're given further financial and moral support as they start their first year in the regular.
Exactly, and the
program.
moral support, of course, will apply throughout their career on campus. We'll try to remain in touch with them throughout their career and be there if there's anything we can do to help them.
Well, now, in addition to the academic components that we've been discussing, are there other social, cultural kinds of activities that the TYP people get involved in that's unique
This
to
is-
the TYP program?
This is one thing I hope to develop, and I'm waiting to talk with the students to see exactly how they would like to organize it, but I would like them to feel that they're part of a very special group, enjoy being part of that group, perhaps have a barbecue at the beach in the fall, or an outing in the spring, evening meetings. This is largely up to them to determine, but I hope there will be some rest and recreation involved in the program.
Some
so to
R&R,
speak.
as they
Right,
say.
exactly.
Right. This may not be a fair question in the sense because as you mentioned, you've only just assumed your duties in July of this year. But how are the students of the TYP program perceived by the wider university community? Is there any stigma that comes with being a TYPer?
There could be. I've heard indications of this, and I'm very concerned about it. I don't think there should be any stigma attached to it whatsoever. This is one reason why I would like to set up the evening lecture series and open it to the general public to emphasize that the TYP, although it's a catch-up year for people who've had enormous difficulties to overcome, is also a resource center. Another one of my long-term projects is developing a library on Black Studies and Mi'kmaq Studies that would again be available to the community, available to graduate students on campus, and I hope we're going to have more students coming using the library, seeing that we have things of great interest to offer and becoming more aware of our program. I hope by pairing new students with faculty advisors that more of the faculty will become aware of the program, and in a general way to give the program as high a profile as possible. I've already had some success in integrating the program into the mainstream of campus life by involving members of the English department and the mathematics department, teaching our English language component
Yes.
and our mathematical skills component.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, when the program started, it started off as an experimental program. Does the fact that it's been operating now for some 12 years suggest that it's moved beyond the experimental stage?
Yes and no. I think that people are still looking for the best way to run the program, but I think there's general recognition of the importance of the program and the very real need that brought it into existence and that needs to maintain its existence.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, this may be somewhat of an unfair question, but I'd like to ask you what criteria are used to determine the effectiveness of the program, and how do you feel the program, how successful do you feel the program has been in the 12 years that it's been in operation?
Well, this is a somewhat impressionistic view, but
yes.
my feeling is that it has not been as successful as it could be. And I hope it will be far more successful in the future. The obvious measure of success is the number of candidates who ultimately get a degree from Dalhousie. However, I think one needs to consider the program a success if in any important way we help the students who come in to develop their skills and define their own personal goals. If after 1 year in the transition year program they decide that the university is not the best place to pursue their personal and professional goals, but they have developed significant skills that will nonetheless enable them to do so, gain greater confidence in seeking their personal goals, then I think it is still a very definite success. Of course, that's difficult to document. One cannot put that sort of statistic into a computer, but I think it is a very real and somewhat overlooked measure of success.
Yes, indeed, I'm inclined to agree with you there. Do you have any idea of the number of students that have been involved in the TYP program over the 12 years that it's been in existence?
The program was originally mandated to take in its first experimental year, 10 Native students and 10 Black students. Oh, I would say for the next 8 years or so, that is approximately what happened, although for a period of time the Union of Nova Scotia Indians felt that their students would be better elsewhere. They have since changed their mind, and we're very pleased that they're back in the program.
Yes.
In recent years, for lack of sufficient funding, the number of Black students in the program has declined, and this is a great concern for me because the Black population in Nova Scotia outnumbers the Native population at least 7 to 1. And this is one of my major priorities, to bring the number of students, Black students, in the program back up to the original 10 and hopefully to expand the Black contingent in the near future as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. I guess there's some uncertainty about the number of students that you'll be, Black students that is, that you'll be able to entertain in the next year. At the moment, I understand that you may only be able to entertain 2 or 3.
Yes, that at the present time is the situation, and that is a cause of great concern because we have already we've interviewed approximately 40 people. And of the 40, we have 12 Black students we consider to be very well qualified. In that group of 12, we have 6 which we consider to be exceptional. We feel very lucky to have 6 such people applying in any 1 year. Mm-hmm. And there is absolutely no way we could fairly accept 2 or 3 of that 6. There's no way to make a fair choice among that 6, and it's probably quite unfair to choose among the group of 12. I'm making every effort to get additional funding at the present time. I've appealed to Dr. Johnston in the provincial government to help us if he possibly can. I've spoken to Vice President Robbie Shaw at Dalhousie University, and I'm sure that they're doing everything possible to get funding for us, but at the present time they have not been able to make a definite commitment to give us the funds that we need to bring in at least 10 students.
Has it been the general atmosphere of restraint that has been responsible for the numbers? I guess it has been, the low numbers in the black community.
Yes, it did. A number of factors contribute. The most important might be the total lack of provincial support for the program, which we had when it was founded and which has disappeared since. Inflation. The fact that the university budget has not grown in proportion to inflationary factors, that tuition has gone up approximately 12%. The budget was increased 4.76%. These are the main factors.
Well, I hope that the university will be able to find a way to be able to accommodate more students in this next academic year that's coming up. We were talking a minute ago about the success of the program, and
yes.
Again, I know that you've just assumed your responsibilities, but are there any areas of weakness or any special initiatives that you feel are needed to enhance the chances of success of the TYPers, or to enrich the TYP program?
I think some of the possible problems in the past have been dealt with by changes in the curriculum, by bringing in regular faculty members to teach part of the core program. I think many of the problems experienced by students in the past could be diminished, if not eliminated, by greater personal attention, greater follow-up. Of course, any increase in staff would be very helpful, because individual attention is a very time-consuming and demanding and psychologically and emotionally draining process. And I hope to have greater assistance in the future, to have more tutors, to have faculty members who can give a greater commitment in time to the program, and I'm working toward that end. And of course, we need bursary funding. That is our number one priority at the moment.
Now, you were saying earlier that anybody could contribute to the bursary fund. I don't know whether this is something new.
This is something quite new, and I'm very grateful to Vice President Robbie Shaw for setting up the fund.
Right.
I think this will help us. If it doesn't get us over the crisis in 82, 83, I think it will leave us in a much better position to maintain the program and hopefully expand it, because the need for expansion has been quite clearly demonstrated in 83, 84, and beyond that.
So if anybody happens to be listening to the program who wants to make a donation, it's simply a matter of getting in touch with Dalhousie and indicating that you'd like to make a contribution to
Yes, they could contact me, or they could send a donation directly if it's earmarked Transition Year Program Bursary Fund. And if they request a tax-deductible receipt, they will receive one. And I certainly hope people in a position to donate are listening today.
And you would, of course, accept any and all amounts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, in terms of your visions for the future of the program, we've talked quite a bit about your perceptions of the weaknesses in the program and some of the things that you want to do, but are there any other special initiatives that you contemplate that you'll be seeking to bring into place in the next year or so?
I don't know exactly what I can do in 1 year, and I think I'll be in a much better position to answer that question after I've gone through an entire academic year as director of the program. Expansion, we've already mentioned that, but it's well worth repeating, because there are now far more qualified students than we can take in, even if we have the normal contingent of 20 students. A group that has been entirely left out in the cold is the non-status and Métis Indians. They do not receive funding from the Department of Indian and Northern Affairs, and I hope to bring some of them into the program. I hope to expand the number of black students who can come into the program to have approximately proportional representation on the basis of the population. I think I'll wait and see how the curriculum goes this year before revising that further. I hope our lecture series can be established and ongoing. I hope to set up the center as a resource area and to involve the university at a much higher level in the future of the program.
Mhm. On the funding side of things, again, I suppose there'll be some vigorous representations made to the province to try to get them to take a bigger share of the financial burden.
Yes,
although I guess
yes,
they're
no one is in an easy position.
Yes.
Everyone is in a difficult position, I realize that, but this program is so urgently needed that I think and I hope it will receive a very high priority, not only on campus, but with the provincial government, with any other government agency or private agency which could give us some degree of support.
Well, Karolyn, one of the things that I certainly, that you've indicated that you want to establish in the near future is the community involvement in the TYP program. I know from the early days when the program was being established that there was a lot of discussion, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of heated discussion, I might add, between members of the black community and the Indian community with the university in terms of trying to have a strong community input in the program. Unfortunately, that has not perhaps been taken place at a level that many people in the community would have liked to have seen. So I'm very encouraged to hear you say that you're going to look at that again in the very near future. I want to wish you all the best in your new responsibilities and trust that the difficulties, particularly the financial difficulties that are being encountered by the program at the moment, will work themselves out over the next couple of years, and that the TYP program will continue to provide the valuable services to members of the black and Indian communities. I want to thank you for being our guest on the Black Horizons program today. We want to thank you for watching our program. Join us next week.